Let me go to Kevin Powell in Atlanta. What about that? I mean, this is a very powerful statement that there is a problem in the community.
Definitely, definitely. I mean, I've been trying to say that there's self-hatred in the black community, you know what I'm saying? We're talking about racism. You know, the brother mentioned white supremacy.
Racism and self-hatred. There's a difference between racism and
breeds self-hatred. Racism breeds self-hatred. I mean, what do you learn when you go to school as a kindergarten? George Washington was the father of this country. Christopher Columbus discovered America. As a young black child growing up in the ghetto, those two facts hit me and said that black people haven't done anything, therefore I hated myself. You know what I mean? And then you go through the educational system, regardless if you're an A student or an F student, you learn a few things. Dr. King had a dream. We were slaves. We saw roots. That was it. You know what I'm saying? That's the basic reality. So when people start scapegoating hip-hop culture, which is just a reflection of the larger black community, I have a problem with that. I don't hear anyone condemning grunge or rock music because Kurt Cobain blew his brain out. You know what I'm saying? I'm talking about racism, or as the brother said, white supremacy, and how it affects everything we do in the black communities around this country.
Let me ask Dr. Margaret Hamburg in New York. You've spent a lot of time on public health issues, and the question is whether or not you know young people, they always listen to music. It seems to have a positive, nurturing impact. Is there any adverse impact of music from your point of view?
Well, that's not an area that I would say I have a great deal of expertise in, but I think that the broader issue of what is the influence of the media, whether it's music or TV or movies, is a very real concern, and we know that it does have a powerful influence on behaviors, and often negative influences. It glorifies many things that are in fact damaging to the lives of individuals, and violence is a major aspect of that. We live in a culture of violence, and it's perpetuated and exacerbated by images in the media.
Kevin Powell, you agree with that?
Movies, who puts out the records? You know, the last time I checked, there were no black people owning any of these major corporations that are putting out these records and these movies. And secondly, when you talk about violence in this country, you talk about racism in this country, you talk about sexism in this country, go back and look at the Revolutionary War period when, you know, the war, America was founded on violence. We're still, in the Constitution, still said 3/5 of a human being. Black people couldn't vote, women couldn't vote. You know, go back to the root causes, root sources in this country. You know, people talking about, well, rap music causes violence. Well, hell, Arnold Schwarzenegger's movies are violent as hell. Van Damme's movies are violent as hell. Steven Seagal's movies are violent as hell. I refuse to allow black people or our culture to be scapegoated for something that is a larger problem, which is racism in America.
Okay, yeah, Dr. Sullivan, too quickly.
This is something very significant. Rap music really is verbal fluency. It's a form of intelligence. And when the process first started, there wasn't this negative bent to it. It really was accepted as a form of fluency that was accepted within our particular community itself and understood within our community. Folks didn't even understand the words in other communities until now, until they start talking about the theme of violence now. But that's not the issue. Verbal fluency from an intelligent point of view, we could use that in schools. You have these youngsters that can take these words and remember these words and get these. They say they can't read, but they can use rap. So use that as a tool.
Well, I want to come back to that. How do we get around it?
Well, I think one thing, we have to understand the complexity of white supremacism and how we get taught and trained in that. You get your manhood and your womanhood, those definitions come from your culture. If you're convinced you've got no culture, as African Americans have been trained to believe, then you'll replace that national culture with a popular culture. You're going to get a Nike culture. You're going to get a Karl Kani culture. You're also going to get a movie culture. Or you're going to get a hip-hop culture. And I think rap is fat, from Lightning Rod to Kool Herc to about the whole nine. But see, people have an obligation not just to show you your reality, but to transform it. If you're drowning, I can show you a mirror. Yeah, that's your reality, but don't I have an obligation also to transform your reality? And that's the legacy from Mary McLeod Bethune to Fannie Lou Hamer, Anna Julia Cooper to W.E.B. Du Bois to Minister
Malcolm. What about
right
now? Who's doing it right now?
What you do is you develop the programs, first of all, because I can relate to this brother, because I came up in the projects, you know what I'm saying? I seen my first day about when I was 9, you know what I'm saying? And there's no reason for me to be here other than some people took some shots for me. And I can't tell you why I'm still here and other folks not here. I didn't think I would be. But I know that it's grounded in people who were in the Republican New Africa, the Black Panther Party, who came to us where we were, taught us our culture, and gave us a living model. Not you can possibly do that, but they showed us what they could do because they were doing it themselves and they had us doing it with them. So we go to the communities right where we are and we take the youth. Don't teach them about philosophy. You want to know my philosophy? Walk with me for a day. And we go there. We go to the prisons, the rec centers, the schools, everywhere they are, because they didn't get like this overnight, and we're not going to transform them, but we got to transform them and transform ourselves, not take them to some fine job you already got, something they can't relate to. That's what George Jackson taught us. There must be an objective basis for your expectations. That is, they got to see what you're talking about.
Let's talk to you about that, Andrea Good. You work in the system every day here in Boston dealing with young black men in the criminal justice system. What are they facing, and what can be done to start to break this cycle of hopelessness?
I think it's very important to understand that we're dealing with too many young African American, both males and females, 10 and 11 and 12-year-olds, who are literally the sole caregivers too often for younger siblings, 7-year-old, 8-year-olds. That is where we need to intervene. We need to find ways of targeting these at-risk youth. It's clearly if children don't show up for school for 20 days in a row, that they're clearly at risk. That is the key to finding solutions. We have to find ways of targeting our at-risk youth and getting them plugged into the community agencies that can help them.
Okay, we've got a young man in New York who's gone through this process of seeming hopelessness, going through the system. Tell us about what you've gone through and why today you're on the right road.
Yes, right now, my family went through a history of the ills of society, so to speak. I lost a mother from alcohol abuse. I lost a sister from heroin. I lost a brother from crack. So you're talking about a history. I lost another sister from a stolen car running over her. So you're talking about a history of a family that has been from the ills of society. However, the self-esteem, I think America owes us a lot in dealing with the self-esteem, the restoration of the self-esteem. Many of the rap groups and rap singers, they express what's inside them. And we need to begin to work inside and then outside. And that's the biggest problem that we have, is that we're working from the outside inside.
Well, let's talk about going from the inside outside. I want to go to Mayor Sharifa Wilson in East Palo Alto. Mayor Wilson, East Palo Alto was once recognized as the community, as the murder capital of the world. And as an African-American woman, you've turned that around. And I want you to say a little bit about how you've turned it around, but I want you to say something else. We've got Lee Brown here, the drug czar in this country, who was setting policy and implementing policy. What message would you want to give to Lee Brown about what we should be doing in fighting the war against drugs as it has an impact on young black men?
Well, I'd like to say that the answer is not solely in the hands of the police. What we have to provide is opportunity. And what the comment that I wanted to make is that America keeps avoiding the issue. The issue is that there is institutionalized, systematic racism in every fabric of this society. And until America owns up to that and takes responsibility for it, the conditions will still continue to happen. It's very interesting, just recently in Oakland, there was a whole movement to educate African-American students about the effects of the Holocaust. But there's been no kind of effort to educate white America about the ills and the effects of slavery. And that's just one example how there are dual standards in this country. And again, the country does not want to take responsibility for the racism that exists. And until we address those issues, we can have these conversations for the next 20 years.
Well, let's address it. We've got the most powerful man in America dealing with the problems of drugs. What do you want to say to Dr. Lee Brown?
What I want to say to him is not only do we need money to provide for drug treatments in our communities, but we also need to take that a step further by providing job opportunities. Because if we don't provide the jobs, the people will have no choice but to go back to the same type of life that they've been living. We need to also recognize that America needs to make a more aggressive effort to control the drugs that are coming into this country. It's interesting that they can stop boatloads of Haitians, but somehow boatloads of drugs slip through constantly.